everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this necklace that I am calling Delicate Thorns. And of course the reason that is called Delicate Thorns is because of the spike beads and the combination of pastel colors and pearls. We've also got some dagger beads in here. We've got crystals and a few seed beads. So with this necklace, it comes out to be about 17.5 inches long. If you want to make it longer, this part back here we can extend and make longer. I am, however, going to give you the number of beads for this project to make the same necklace the same size. So if you want to adjust that, you'll need a few more 8/0s and a few more rice pearls. So let's look at what we're going to need to make this necklace. So what we're going to need is, of course, some spike beads. And we are going to use 43 Czech Spike beads. Now, with your spike beads, you want to shop around a little bit. You can get them at all the big places, and you can get them on eBay also. Shop around. Some places they're really expensive. Some types of spikes are more expensive than others also. Look and see, because you're going to need 43 of them. You can find some in packages of 12, which are not too terribly expensive, or you can buy them by the individual bead, 19 cents a piece, something like that. Just look and compare, because some of them are very expensive and others are pretty reasonable. I bought several packages and just mixed them together so that I have a variety of colors in my necklace. And I bought mainly just jewel tones and stone tones and flesh tones and golds and things like that, so that they would be nice and soft looking. Then you will need rice pearls. You will need 85 4x6 rice pearls. You will need also an 8/0 seed bead. I'm using just a Czech translucent pink. You will need an 11/0 seed bead. I'm using a Toho Silverline clear. You will need a 4mm bicone crystal. This is a Swarovski rose crystal. And you will need daggers. These daggers are 3x11mm and the color is rose. And then you will need a 3x2mm rondelle crystal. Now, a lot of people have issues finding these little crystals like this, so you can use a little 3mm round, or you could use a 3mm bicone. You'll just have to adjust the amount of seed beads on either side for your embellishment as you do it, and see what works best. The little rondelle works really well in it, but you can always get creative and change things up. This does take a lot of different types of beads, so just use what you've got. Just look through and see what will work and try it. Now, you will also need a magnetic clasp. I, on my original one, used a round, so this is going to make my necklace a little bit longer, since it's a little bit longer in size. However, I seem to be out of round magnetic clasps, so I'm going to use a barrel-shaped clasp today. You will also need a beading needle. I'm using a size 10, and you will need 8-pound Fireline. And just go ahead and thread on a comfortable length of 8-pound Fireline. And we are going to get started by picking up a rice bead, an 8/0 seed bead, a rice bead, an 8/0 seed bead, a spike, and an 8/0. And this is what you'll have. Let's get a little closer here. I'm going to get our beads out of the picture. We don't need those. Okay, so this is what you will have on your thread here. And then bring it down to the end and leave quite a long tail. Leave 12 to 18 inches, because you're going to use the end to make your little rice pearls that lead to your clasp. So after you have brought these down to the end, go ahead and sew back through all of them, starting with the very first rice pearl that you put on, and just sew back through. And this is what you should have. Now we're going to sew where our tail is coming out here and our working thread is coming out here. We're going to sew back up through the rice beads. Try not to tangle your tail into it. And the 8/0s, actually you're going to sew through the rice bead, the 8/0, and the rice bead, not the 8/0 on the other side next to the spike here. So we're going to sew through like this. And this is what you will have on your thread. Now we're going to pick up a rice pearl, 2 rice pearls actually, an 8/0, a rice pearl. These little rice pearls are kind of hard to pick up. An 8/0, a spike, and an 8/0. So what you will have is 2 rice pearls, an 8/0, a rice pearl, an 8/0, a spike, and an 8/0. Bring them down to your work here, and then you are going to go underneath the spike. I'm doing this upside down, so this will be facing you. You're going to go underneath the spike and just up through the first rice pearl that you added, or the second rice pearl that you added. We'll do that one more time so it's less confusing here. And then pull. And now, see how some of the beads are bigger than others? And just the different lots, I suppose. They're all supposedly 7 by 17, but then we're going to go through the 8/0, and the rice pearl, and pull tight. Make sure there's no slack in your thread whatsoever. And that's what your first 2 units should look like. Now let's do this third unit very clearly so that you can understand exactly what I'm doing. We are going to pick up 2 rice pearls, an 8/0 seed bead, a rice pearl, an 8/0 seed bead, a spike, and an 8/0 seed bead. This is what you will have on your needle. Drop them down to your work. Now, when you come through around to make your little circle here, it's easier if you come underneath. You will come to the second rice pearl that you put on and just go through it. And pull. This will bring your unit around and position you so that now you can tighten and secure this unit by going up through this 8/0 and this rice pearl. So let's go through these 2 and pull tight, secure the unit, and that is what you will have right there. And we will do this one more time. Pick up 2 rice pearls, an 8/0, a rice pearl, an 8/0, a spike bead. Oh, let's get a different color. I don't want that color either. Give me a color. And an 8/0. And that's what you will have. Drop them down. If you lay it out like this, it's very easy to see that you will want to have one little bead in between, so always skip that little bead. You'll go into the second bead. It's better if you go underneath your spike. It just brings it out better. It's just upside down for me. Pull through. And there's your little circle. Now we're going to go through the 8/0 and the rice pearl. And we're ready to start our next unit. So we'll pick up 2 rice pearls, an 8/0, a rice pearl, an 8/0, a spike, and an 8/0, and do the exact same thing. Do this 22 times until you have 22 spikes, and we will be back. I have made my 22 units of spikes here. You're going to count each unit, each spike for your 22. Don't count the individual beads in between as a unit, just the spikes. And then you'll be coming out at the end here. You'll be coming out of the rice pearl. So we are going to just reinforce this last unit by going all the way around all the beads again, because the unit will want to pull apart. So we're going to tighten it up here and secure it. Now we're going to go down into this little 8/0 seed bead right here. Pull everything tight. Now we are going to make our little units that lead over. It still kind of wants to pull apart, so don't pull too hard this direction on the 8/0 seed bead. So now we're going to make our little units of rice pearls that lead to our clasp. So we're going to pick up a rice pearl, an 8/0, and a rice pearl, bring them down. Then we're going to go through the 8/0 that we are coming out of on the opposite side and pull. And now we will need to sew back through them. So we've sewn through this rice pearl here. We're going to come up through the 8/0. And now we're going to add 2 more rice pearls, or a rice pearl, actually, an 8/0 and a rice pearl. Like this. Drop it down. We're going to go through the opposite side that we're coming out of into the seed bead that we're coming out of and pull. And then we're going to climb back up into the closest rice pearl and pull, and then through the 8/0 right here and pull again. And they might be a little wonky looking or funny looking. That's okay, because when we come back down through after we put on our clasp, we'll secure that and make them nice and neat. So we're going to continue doing this, a rice pearl, an 8/0, and a rice pearl, and going through and securing them until we get 5 units. More if you want longer necklace. If you want a longer necklace, do this until you get to the length you want. Probably if you want to make an 18 or longer, you'll need to add, that's about a ½ inch, you'll need to add probably 2 units per inch. And then we'll be back. So I've made my 5 units. Now remember, like I said, if you're adding more, I'm saying 2 units per inch, but you have to remember you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So as you're adding it, keep that in mind. The other side will need the same amount of units to increase your length. You'll want to consider that. So now I am coming out of my 8/0 seed bead right here, and I am going to pick up 3 11/0s onto my needle, my clasp, and 3 11/0s. I'm going to drop this down, and then I'm going to come up through the other side of the 8/0. Now we're just going to sew this circle, go up through the 11/0, through the clasp, and back around. We're going to do that 3 times, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I have secured my clasp, and now I am going to tighten up and reinforce my little 5 units. So I'm going to come down. I'm coming out of the side of the 8/0 here. I'm going to come down through the rice purl, and I'm going to sew through the 8/0 and then down through the next. Now you can go around the entire unit if you need to. If it looks like it's really loose and it's kind of funny looking, you can go around each unit. Right now I'm just going up and down and working my way down each unit, going through 1 rice purl on either side. But if you feel like your little rice purls are laying funny or looking strange, you can definitely go around the entire unit and then move down to the next and go around the entire unit. That will help. But as I'm doing this, it seems to be helping mine look a little bit more straightened up. So this may be just enough. And so all the way down. And here, I have coming out of the top of my little rice purl. I am going to now go into this rice purl in my first unit that I made above the 8/0, the first unit I made with my spike, and I'm going to come through the rice purl. Now I'm going to come through the 8/0, and I'm going to start adding another row of spikes. And the way we're going to do that is we'll be coming out of our 8/0. We are going to pick up a 4mm bicone, a spike. Just pick out a nice color that's kind of alternate your colors. You know, you've got a little random pattern going, or you could be using one solid color. If you're using different colors, just kind of look and see what color will offset the color that you have. So I'm going to use a clear. I have a bicone, a spike, and a bicone. And then I am going to go into the next 8/0 seed bead on top here and pull. And I'm just going to move down my entire work, picking up a bicone and a spike, and a bicone, perhaps, drop them down and go through the next one. And we're going to do this, pull a little bit. We're going to do this the entire length of our necklace. Bicone, spike, bicone, from 8/0 to 8/0, 8/0 to 8/0, all the way down to the end, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished my upper row of spikes, my bicone, spike, bicone row from 8/0 to 8/0. Now at this point, I'm coming out of the very last 8/0 here. You want to make sure everything is neat. Make sure all your spikes are laying nicely. Everything's good. Your pearls are looking good and not bunched up. Put your finger at the end and just gently pull and cinch the thread tight on the top here, bringing all your 8/0s and your spikes together tight to where there are no parts of thread showing. But as you do this, you don't want to bunch your pearls, so you will straighten your pearls back up and your spikes back up and just move through it until you get the slack out. And make sure that your piece lays nice. So I'll show you close up what it should look like. It should be laying without the pearls bunching, but yet there shouldn't be a whole lot of thread in between. Once you get that, then let me move my piece over. I'm going to mess it up, so I'll have to tighten it again, but that's okay. Once you get there, everything looks good. You've got a nice, this will make a little curve in your necklace. It should bring your necklace to lay in a little round kind of circle. Once you get that done, then you will come through the little rice bead right next to the 8/0 you're coming out of. You'll go down through it, and then you will come down through the little 8/0 right underneath it. Try to avoid your tail, but keep it maintained away from everything. And then reestablish your tension. Make sure everything still looks good, nothing's bunched. Now we will start an embellishment on the bottom row here. So we will pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, a crystal rondelle, and 3 11/0s. And we will come over the top of the spike and come into the 8/0 seed bead right next to it and pull. Make sure your tension is still established from the top. Nothing's getting loose, nothing's getting bunched. After you get a few of these done, then you won't have to worry about that anymore. But at this point, your tension can be lost or you can get it too tight. So now we have come through this 8/0 seed bead. We are going to pick up an 8/0, 3 dagger beads, and an 8/0, just like this. And then we are going to go into the next 8/0 right next to the next spike. And pull. Again, make sure your tension is correct, everything looks good, and we will move into the embellishment that goes over the top of the spike now. 3 11/0 seed beads, a rondelle, and here, this is where if you cannot find a 2x3 rondelle, you can use a 3mm round or you can use a 3mm bicone, but you may have to adjust the amount of seed beads on either side. You may have to use 2 on either side. Now we have our little embellishment on the thread. We'll go up through our next 8/0 seed bead and pull. Straighten everything up, make sure it looks good. Pick up an 8/0, 3 dagger beads, oops, these daggers do not want to go on my needle, and an 8/0. And again, we will go into, and I have 4 daggers. Well, let's take one of those off. An 8/0, 3 daggers, and an 8/0. Go into the next 8/0 and pull. And then we will begin the embellishment over the top of the spike. And you will do this the whole length of the necklace. 3 11/0s, a crystal, 3 11/0s, go through the 8/0. Pick up an 8/0, 3 daggers, an 8/0, and go through the next 8/0. And continue in this fashion until we get to the end. Okay, so I have done my entire bottom embellishment with my daggers, my crystal, my 11-0s, and my 8-0s. And I have my last little 3 11-0s and crystal 3 11-0s to put over the last dagger here. The center is a little bit better. So I'm coming out of this 8-0 right here. I am now going to go into the very last 8-0 on the back side of the very last spike here. So we're going to come up through this 8-0 right here and pull. And pull. Make sure everything's nice and tight. And then now I'm going to travel up through, I'm coming out of this 8-0 seed bead here, I'm going to travel up through the rice bead and this 8-0 and the first bicone crystal. And pull my thread through. Now we're going to start putting a little embellishment over the top of the spikes on the top row. So it's the same thing, except for this time you'll pick up 2 11-0s, a rondelle, and 2 11-0s instead of 3 on either side of the rondelle. We'll bring it down. And now we are just going to go into, I need to reposition here, we are going to go into the bicone crystal on the other side of the spike. Lay the spike down so that it's in the proper position and pull. Let's get so you can see it better. Just like that. And the same with the next one. But right now we're coming out of the bicone crystal. We're on top of the 8-0 seed bead. Now you can do one of two things. You can either grab a crystal rondelle and put it between the 2 bicones, or you can grab an 8-0 seed bead. In my original design, I used an 8-0 for this part, but I think I'm going to try a rondelle this time to see if it works. And if this does work and we decide we want to use the little rondelle instead of an 8-0 between the 2 bicones, then you will need 63 instead of 43 of them. But I haven't tried it yet, so let's see if it works. My tail keeps getting messed in here. So, come through the bicone, and now I've dropped a rondelle down. I'm going to come through the next bicone, just the bicone, and pull. Yes, that works just fine. So if you want to use, in your top embellishment, if you want to use a rondelle, you can do that. If it's too thready, no, it's okay. Okay, so our next thing that we're going to do is pick up 2 11-0s, a rondelle, 2 11-0s, and then go over the spike, make sure it's lying down, and go into the next bicone crystal and pull. Pull everything tight. Next spike bead out and ready here. They like to flip under and do all kinds of weird things until you get them anchored down. So we are coming out of the bicone crystal here, and we have a little gap between bicones, so we'll pick up a rondelle or an 8-0, either one, it's fine, and go into the next bicone crystal. I don't know why I think I can do that left-handed. I can't. Pull the rondelle between the bicones. Pull tight. And now we're ready to put our little embellishment over the top. So we'll go 2 11-ohs, a rondelle, and 2 11-ohs. And then we will go into the next bicone crystal on the other side of the spike and pull. And tighten it up. And now we will put a rondelle between the 2 bicones. And we'll just continue doing this the entire length of the necklace. And when we get to the end, we will tie off and then make our last rice pearls for our for our clasp. Sorry, this really isn't this difficult. It's just a strange position I'm trying to do this in. So far this is what I have. I have gone through and put little rondelles on top of each of the spikes and a little rondelle between each of the bicone crystals. So continue doing that all the way the length of the necklace and we'll be back. Okay, so I have done my entire top embellishment now, all the way through, and I'm just about to go over my last spike with my last embellishment here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and show you how we're going to finish this off, our working thread anyway. So I am coming out of the bicone right before my last spike bead, and then of course I put my embellishment on right here, and I'm going to go into my last bicone crystal, and I'm also going to include the 8/0 seed bead and the last rice pearl and pull. Now, I am just going to sew down through my embellishment on the bottom here. These little 11-ohs. I will sew through the crystal all the way up until I can get to my original units. And I will sew around them a couple of times and tie my thread off. And then we will be back. So I have sewn through a few of my units, tied off my thread, my working thread, put my needle onto my long tail that I left. And if you find that you still don't have enough tail, if you didn't leave it long enough, you can always extend your Fireline. But we're going to go ahead and make our little connection for our clasp on the other end here now. So right now we are coming out of the very last 8/0 seed bead where our tail originated when we very first started. It's a little bit tighter on this side because that's where we started, but you can still use that seed bead just fine. So you're going to pick up an rice bead, an 8/0 and a rice bead, and drop them down. And then go back through. We're coming out of this side with our tail of the 8/0. We're going to go through the opposite side of the 8/0, move our little 11-ohs aside, and pull. Just like that. Now we're going to climb up the rice bead right here, right next to where we're coming out, and the 8/0, and pull. Then we're going to add a rice bead, an 8/0 and a rice bead, and we're going to do this again just like we did on the other side. We're going to make 5 units of 2 rice beads and the 8 O's. We'll make 5 of these units, and when we get to the end, we will attach the other side of our clasp exactly how we did the other side with the 3 11 O's, the clasp, the 3 11 O's, and circle through the 8 O 3 times. And then you can sew back down through your 8 O's just like we did on the other side, so that, or not your 8 O's, but your 8 O's and your rice seeds just like we did on the other side. Secure them, make them nice and neat, and tie off. And then I'll be back with the finished. And here is the finished product. Turned out quite pretty. So, like I said, you can change beads around, try different things with it. I went ahead and, like I said, added the roundel on the top here instead of an 8 O. Or you could actually, when you're doing your last embellishment, you could just slide through the 8 O that's in between the bicones and just bypass that whole entire little tiny embellishment too. Whatever you want to do. And to make it your own, play with it. Make it black, make it silver, make it whatever you want. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.